Welcome to the CROA Candidate Forum. Today is February 16th, the year 2016. This is the second of our CROA Candidate Forums, and you've met the candidates before in our previous one. You can see it online. Our candidates were at the forum, and also we're at Food Truck Friday, and this is our last one. Since these candidates have been here before, I'm going to still give them a chance to introduce themselves really quickly. Again, you don't have to take the 2 minutes to do that as we go around. We do have quite a few questions that were emailed in and questions that were handed out. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Lee Moore. I'm the Vice President of the CROA Board, and my term is up, so on the CROA Board, and some of these fine candidates would be replacing me and some others on the CROA Board. So without further ado, we'll start with this end. Last week we started on this end. We'll start with Alex. And Alex, if you can give maybe some new viewers a little background.
Absolutely. My name is Alex Carius, and I want to tell everybody or ask everybody to please fill out your ballots. It's important, as we have a wide variety and a wide diverse people running for CROA. I've been in Celebration since 2005. I'm a registered community association manager for the past 10 years, so I think I can bring a unique perspective to the board by really have a good knowledge of contract negotiations, financials, and really like to make sure that we are planning for the future, because Celebration's future depends on us having a good vision, CROA having a good vision, and then also us making sure that the management company is managing our town correctly and bring us to the future.
Thank you, Alex. Dennis.
Hi, my name is Dennis Stout. Appreciate everybody being here and everybody watching at home. Glad to see an interest in Celebration and certainly solicit your vote. But I've lived here. My wife and I moved here about 10 years ago, back in 2005, and we lived in the same house in South Village for 10 years. We loved Celebration when we came here. I like the way it's laid out. I like the beauty and the green spaces, and I like the sense of community. I loved it before we moved here. I love it now, and I expect to love it a long time into the future. I know Celebration is it's growing, it's aging, it's getting more complex, and it's changing. And I welcome all that. It's part of life, but I'd like to be involved in trying to maintain what makes Celebration so good for all of us as we go through the changes in the future. So I would appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Fred?
Hi, my name is Fred Johnston. I've been a financial advisor for the last 30 years. I started coming to Celebration in the 1990s after reading an article, and fell in love with it immediately and figured someday I'm going to get here. Someday I'm going to live here. And 2 years ago I moved, got permission to transfer with my company, and expect to be here the rest of my life. Over the last 15 years I've been on 4 or 5 different boards. If elected to this board, I think I could be an asset. And again, Celebration is a fabulous town, and look forward to living here and maybe being on the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Eric?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Opegard. I'm currently sitting on the CROA board as president. One of the biggest things that I'm big on, obviously, is technology. As some of you saw me trying to fiddle with some things this evening to get it out. I think that we can use technology in order to increase transparency and communication in a lot of different ways. Some of the things that we've tried to do that is through the cell service application, as I mentioned last week, and I've mentioned it in a couple of places online. As well as an updated website, which we'll be launching soon, as well as also getting live streaming up and running with the exception of tonight. So there's a lot of little things that we're working on. If you want to know some more information about me, you can visit my website at ericforcroa.org. You can also send me an email at eric@ericforcroa.org if your question doesn't get answered this evening. Just wanted to thank everyone, and I know a couple of people have reached out to me and they've asked some questions about whether or not I would change some of the things that I've done in the past or what I'm going to do moving forward. And there's always room for improvement, no matter what we're doing. But as I like to say, I'm just glad to see it. There's a bunch of other people running here as well. So that if you don't agree with what I'm running for, please vote for someone else, because there's lots of other candidates running. The importance is that you get out and vote.
Thank you very much, Eric. Scott?
Good evening. My name is Scott Sanders. I'm one of the relatively newer members, or newer residents of Celebration running for the board. As I kind of mentioned last time, I'm not much of a talker. I'm more of a listener and like to process information before I open my mouth and say something stupid. So I'm not often the first to speak, and I don't always have much to say, but I'm always listening. So if you ever have any questions, my email's address is printed in the newspaper. It's on the website. If you have any questions for me personally, I'd happily answer them. About October of 2014, my wife, daughter, and I moved to Celebration. My wife accepted a job at the hospital, and it really came down to one choice for location to live after kind of looking at the schools in the area. It's a place that my daughter has grown to love as a student. It's a place we've grown to love as a family, and I'm glad that this is a neighborhood that my daughter gets to grow up in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Michael?
Hi, my name is Mike Smith, and my wife Kathy and I are both retired. We moved down here about 10 months ago from northern Illinois, the Chicago area. Kathy was a school teacher for 35 years. I worked in radio for 15 years, and after that, I was in the recording industry for 25 years. During that time, the last 7 years of that 25-year period, I was a vice president in marketing and promotion for Interscope Records, which is part of the Universal Music Group. I want to talk a little bit about my responsibilities there because I think they could be applicable to what we do on the CROA board. I was responsible, first of all, for getting our artists, our diverse artist roster, getting their music played on radio on a national level, which wasn't too difficult when you consider the artists we had. U2, Maroon 5, Lady Gaga, artists like that, pretty big names. And also helping artists develop their own brand, which I think is extremely important for pretty much any kind of a business, any kind of a person who is marketing themselves, and for towns such as Celebration. Celebration obviously already has a great brand. People all over the country know about this community. People all over the world know about this community and love to visit this community. We have a great brand. We need to maximize that, I believe, as much as we possibly can, and I think it can enhance our bottom line. And I would appreciate your support. And again, it is important to get out there and vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Tim?
Good evening. My name is Tim Swisher. I'm a resident since 2003. I built a house in East Village in 2003. We sold that house a year ago last fall and moved to South Village, and I downsized. But my background consists of 15 years in the insurance business with commercial lines insurance, those kinds of insurance, very much like what you see and what is carried by associations like Celebration. I spent 20 years in the banking business managing trust departments and brokerage divisions. And then when I retired from that, I decided to go into property management for less stress. And like Alex, I manage several condos and an HOA. I spent 2.5 years managing Golden Oak at Walt Disney World Resorts, and then eventually turned that over to them for the property management. I hold designations as a certified manager of community associations as well as an association management specialist. And I've done a variety of volunteering in Celebration over the years, the American Pie Festival, American Cancer Society, Posh Pooch, which is coming up, the Celebration Choral Group, 4th of July Parade, Knights of Columbus, and we have a bingo. In fact, it's in this room tomorrow night, so if you want to come down, play bingo. I also am a member of the Corpus Christi Catholic Church. I appreciate your vote, and the main thing is just get out and vote, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Lindsay?
Hello there, my name is Lindsay Taylor. I am the director of X Factor Dance and Gymnastics. I grew up participating in my family LLC, which owns a dance studio just outside of Washington, D.C. It's been going for about 25 years, and I opened our secondary location here in town about 5 years ago when there was a need for dance classes. I've gotten to really experience the community through that dance studio and through our students' eyes, so I have a vested interest in the youth programs here in town. We've participated in all sorts of different events, whether it's the parades, the pie festivals, the Relay for Life. Anytime you see dancers out there on the street, they're usually my students. Really enjoying everything that the town has to offer gave me the fever to move in, and we moved in about 2 years ago and then purchased a house recently. So currently in the North Village, but we'll be moving to the East Village soon. I know last week I mentioned that my biggest concern about running for the board was the time commitment, and I've been able to sit down with various board members throughout this past not quite a week, but I've been able to get some really great answers, and I appreciate their time. And after discussing with them and with my husband, I know that I'm comfortable making this commitment. This is something I'm passionate about, and I want to run for the board and hopefully be nominated to help present the youth programs and be a voice that represents all of the children in the town. Thank you for your time, and I hope you get out and vote.
Thank you, Lindsay. Leonard?
Hello, my name is Leonard Tim. I moved to Celebration approximately almost 20 years ago now, 19-something years ago. My wife, my son, who was 12 at the time when we first moved here, went to school actually in this building here. That's the initial school that we started here. I've seen a lot of change go on in the last 19 years living here in town. With Island Village and the Celebration Company selling out the rest of their real estate, building on the boulevard out there, we're going to see a lot more change in the next few years, and we need to be prepared for that. I have a background in accounting and finance, and I basically believe in volunteerism. I'm a veteran, and in the last 10 years, I've volunteered over 9,000 hours to veterans organizations. I'm also a member of the Celebrators, and what else have I done in town? We used to do, as part of the Posh Pooch show here, my dog used to perform. I used to put on about a 15-minute show with him. He's Sam, and many of the young people in town still go by me, "Oh, hi, Sam, hi, Sam." They don't know me, but my dog is famous. Anyway, it'd be an honor for me to put my skill and energy to work for the CROA board, and please vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. So echo the comments of please vote. I think just to let you know that you can vote until March 7th. You can vote online or you can vote in the mail. So you should have received your ballot already. If not received your ballot, please contact Town Hall at the 851 building, and they will help you. So they actually will even help you vote online here. They'll have a set up for you and help you do that. And you could do that until 5:30 p.m. until March 7th. Okay, so we're going to go right to some of the questions that were emailed in and asked. We're going to go straight to something that's pressing and had a lot of questions, by the way, 3 or 4 different questions. And we'll start probably with Alex on this end over there so JR has a chance to move over. But it's about the Education Task Force and your thoughts on it, and what would you do as a CROA director, if anything, differently?
For the Education Task Force, I attended all the meetings but one, so I kept abreast of what they were doing. I tried to stay informed. I think overall they did an excellent job trying to get as much information as possible, which wasn't always very easy because numbers were flying around left and right, and I don't think we still know the right numbers for everything, but we got pretty close. I think they took a lot of input from the community, see what they wanted, but they also talked to both stakeholders, which is the school board and then also Celebration Company. So overall, I feel they got all the information that they could have gotten, and I hope they come to I think they've come to the right decision on trying to put up option number, I guess it's 7, and moving forward. If another task force would be initiated for anything else in the community, I think it's very important to get all the information that they can, listen to the residents, and invite all the stakeholders and find the best solution for Celebration and everybody involved.
Thank you, Alex. Dennis, any thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the Education Task Force was a great idea. I'll say that front. It involved a number of knowledgeable professionals with a strong interest in the education for the children and for the youth of Celebration. And it did, like Alex said, it gathered a great deal of information, and it included the stakeholders who probably do not necessarily have the same interest as the community members, but certainly have an interest that we have to take into account. I'm very supportive of whatever they come up with, And I think, well, I just think it was a good idea, and I think we owe gratitude to both the board for making that decision on that, the way to handle it internally, and also to people who are on the board, on the education task force, for the work they've done and the information they've gathered and the interaction and networking they've done to get the information needed to come to the right decision. I will certainly, as a board member, support that recommendation.
Thank you, Dennis. Fred?
I agree with both Dennis and Alex that the task force has certainly got enough information, and obviously one of the biggest problems was what could have happened without them, and increasing the size of the population at the kindergarten through or elementary school. At this point, that would have been a disaster for the town. And I know that I used to live across the street. First year here I rented and then bought the second year. They haven't come to a final decision as I understand it, but it looks like they're in the right direction and it's going to be a good thing for the town. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
So let's talk about some of the things that I think that we could have done better with the task force. I think one of the biggest things that I struggle with, obviously, is communication. There were a lot of people that were getting information from multiple different sources. Sometimes that source was correct, sometimes it was incorrect, or sometimes it was a giant game of telephone. One of the challenges that we have is once again, we are a homeowners association. So really, at the end of the day, we're providing a recommendation to the Osceola County School Board. We kind of don't have a horse in the race. It's very important to us, obviously. It impacts our property values, obviously, which is why the board set up the task force. But at the end of the day, we are providing just that, a recommendation. I think the big thing to keep in mind with it is that we likely could have tried to, instead of only posting information in our one forum, a lot of people have migrated to other different platforms because we haven't caught up yet with some of our website updates and website design. And we maybe could have figured out a little bit clearer way for everyone in the community to do that. One of the things that I struggled with the task force is that there were a lot of repetitive questions asked a lot of the same nights over and over and over again. They said, well, have you guys thought about this, or have you thought about doing this, or have you thought about this option? And likely the answer to all of that was yes. They've gone down multiple different roads, and that's a big debt to the task force that they went through all this. I think that what really did go well with it is, contrary to what some people may say, in my opinion, all of the options were vetted. Every single thing was looking at it. A lot of people came back and they said, well, you're not recommending something that's the best for Celebration in a lot of cases. The catch is that it's the Osceola County school system at the end of the day. We need to compromise somewhere in it. And that's where we kind of landed with it. So I appreciate their time.
Thank you, Eric. Scott?
If I were a member of the board and I was presented the information from the task force, I would more or less accept it, knowing the fact that they've spent the last few months going through all the pros and cons, the different ideas that have come up, and measuring the pros and cons of each. They've pulled together information, they've asked for homeowner comment, and they've really done the legwork, so they can present to the board a common, I don't want to say solution, but a common suggestion that they could then vote on to then present to the school board. I remember going to the original school board meeting when this all sort of blew up, and I took away from the school board that they didn't really care if we won in this situation as long as they won. And it could be a win-win, or it could be a win-loss, and we were the loss, as long as they got their seats. So, is it going down? Is it settling on something? I'd kind of rather settle on something than lose in terms of the school system here. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
I think Scott's right. I think we're headed for a compromise solution. I don't think we're going to get exactly what I believe the vast majority of citizens here in the community would want to get, but I think the board knows that, the action committee knows that, and it seems to be, after being at last night's meeting, that we're headed for the K-5 solution. building out at Island Village. And I guess that might be the best solution, the best compromise solution that we can all live with. To me, the most important thing is that the K-8 school in Celebration is left alone. It doesn't need to be any bigger. Someone made a great point last night, and I think this is very, very true in education, no matter what community you live in. The smaller the school, the better education your child's going to get. And I think that's a fact. And I think we've got to be cognizant of that, and anything we can do as residents of this town to make sure that the growth is pretty much curtailed at the K through 8 school in the middle of our community, the better off we'll all be. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Tim?
Well, I think Eric probably summed it up the best with the fact that we are just an HOA, and we really don't have a dog in this fight, but I think this task force did a wonderful job of talking with the school board, talking with TCC, and convincing them that there was other options to just throwing another 1,000 children into the K through 8. I believe they did a wonderful job with that, and I think the solution that they came up with was probably the best solution that they could have under the circumstances they were dealing with. So I believe as the town grows, we're going to be dealing with this again. The K through 8's eventually going to get full, and so will the 6 through 8 over here in town. But hopefully this will buy us some time, and we can try to work on a more expanded version of where we're going to put all of these children in the future. But they did a wonderful job. Thank you.
I think everybody's pretty well summed it up. I mean, it's a tough situation, Dan, because you're never going to get everyone to be happy at the same time. There are so many different emotions that come into play in a situation like this. I think the biggest point that everyone in Celebration is making is that we care about our community school. We all moved here because of the community. We like the small town feel. We like knowing who our children's teachers are. We like being able to go in and volunteer. And I think the biggest disaster would have been having the school grow so fast and so large where you would lose that touch. You know, it would obviously drastically affect the property values here. And I think the task force was wonderful in being very diverse. I know that there were a lot of different people that were appointed to the force that specialized in different areas, and I think that was really showed a lot of wisdom from everyone who's currently on the board who was part of that decision process. I personally am happy with the decision that we seem to be headed into. I think people who are buying new homes over on that side will be aware of that as they're going into town. Obviously, everyone would like to be in the main school, but it just seems like that's not a feasible option. So I think considering what it could have been, I think they did a very good job coming up with a solution.
Leonard?
Yes, I went to all of the educational task force meetings except for 2. Those 2 I happened to be out of state, so it was not very easy to do. I did watch them on TV. On these. What would that be? That'd be on YouTube, I guess.
Streamed it online, yeah.
After I returned from each trip. There is one more meeting that the task force will have coming up, and that will be, I guess, their final vote for choosing the options. And it appears that the 2 options were option 7 and option 1. Option 7 was the K-5 going in down in Island Village, expanding the middle school here to accommodate the 6th, 7th, and 8th out of that school. And option 1 didn't seem to have much support from the straw polls they've taken. So I think it's probably out the window, which was building the 1,000 student stations, just kind of that way about 1,000 feet or so. The Celebration Company and the Oslo School Board basically have all the power. Celebration Company in that they're offering prepaid impact fees to the county, and the school board in that they need money to make more room for more students. Again, we're sort of powerless. As far as what I would have done different on the task force is a lot of the numbers I would hear from the county, because the county people attended these meetings, would seem to change and be variable each time. And as I got those numbers, I would have been writing them up on a whiteboard and kind of noting where they came from. So when Ms. Blake came in the next time, that we could ask her, why were these numbers changed from the time before? And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard. Thank you very much, Steve. We're getting questions as we go about it here, which is great. And then again, if you have any questions that come up, we might have some time to get through them all. Eric, we're going to start with you, and we're going to go from Eric to Fred that way. And the first question that we got from the audience is about town center the condominiums, and the issue of their particular disrepair at this time. The question is, does CROA have any responsibility in that? And would you, as a candidate, you are already on the board, do anything differently or do anything about it?
Sure. I've been asked this question multiple times, so whoever asked this question probably is going to know my answer. For those that don't know, there's some current construction issues going on in our condos. There's areas that are under disrepair that have needed some maintenance for a while, and as lots of things come down to, it comes down to who's going to pay for it at the end of the day. There's quite an interesting dynamic the way that area works down there. For those that obviously have been downtown, the bottom floor is owned by businesses. It's not a residential ownership. For residential side, it's everything above that. So there's a condominium complex above it. It creates an interesting situation with who's responsible for what in the building. Who maintains the paint? Who maintains the inside wall? Where does the inside wall actually begin? Where does it end? It's kind of a mess. It's laid out pretty clearly from what I can tell in the guidelines, but there's still a question on what CROA's responsibility is, because we can only enforce as a board the visual aesthetics of a building. So we can make it the prettiest looking building that's uninhabitable, really, at the end of the day. One of the things that the board has done now is we are going to be looking into trying to find out legally what our responsibility is as a board, which I think is step number one. We need to figure out where we can go within our power with how we can assist the town center condominiums. I think that we're a little bit behind in some cases on where I wish we were. However, the catch is that we also need to know where everyone else sits with it. So where does CNOA sit with it? Where does the Celebration Company with the Celebration Foundation? I'm sorry, not Celebration Foundation. CJC, thank you. The Celebration Joint Committee, which oversees everything on top of it. Who's responsible for what? And I think that's what we got to figure out and get a question for that legally to be able to figure out our next step to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Fred, I assume you don't have as much experience in this area
No,
as Eric,
but,
but any
basically
comments?
going to defer to Eric.
Right. That's why I did
First
first,
thing- yeah,
give
thanks.
everybody a chance to.
First thing you
catch
have to
up.
do, obviously, is find out legally what the responsibility is as far as what the association can and cannot do. Once you define that or have at least an opinion, the next thing you do, again, in my judgment, is you'd go to the other boards and say, okay, here's the problem, here's what we can do, what can you do? Obviously, we have a problem that we all want to solve. And then from there, that's where it takes you. You know, first, the legal opinion, second, the other boards, and then take whatever action jointly everyone feels and legally you can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Dennis?
I have to say now, I don't know all of the legal component of this. My perception is that there may not be a much legal authority for the board to do anything. But we do have 105 members of CROA who live in those, and I think we owe the same support to them that we owe to the people who live out in the community elsewhere and are dealing with houses in the neighborhood, or they're not meeting the standards of what we expect a house to look like. And certainly I've hassled Eric a couple times now about one house, but it's the same. I think the same thing downtown. I as a board and as a association, we need to do what we can. We also need to realize that in the end there's some things we can't do, and probably our most the best we can do is be supportive and do everything we can to help the people who are going to have to deal with this for probably quite a while.
Thank you, Dennis. Alex?
I think Eric summed it up really good as far as CROA. First of all, we need to find a legal opinion on what CROA actually can do about it. But there's several different entities that are involved down there. You got the TCC, you got CNOA, you've got Town Center Foundation, and then you also have the Town Center Condo Association itself. So it's, again, a lot of different moving parts, and it's going to take some time to figure that out. Of course, the Town Center Association, the 105 owners, they have paying their dues of about $300-something a month into their pot, and they want to know, well, what's happening with all of our money, and that needs to be researched. I think overall, the involved entities could have done a lot better job of making sure that adequate reserves are there to make such repairs, because apparently they have not been done. Because once you peel off the paint, you have a lot of rotting wood. But the end of the story is you need to repair it. You can't just aesthetically make it look good, because otherwise you're going to have everything come down. So again, a lot of moving parts, but the end result is that it needs to be fixed. And I do believe there is a time table in place to get some things fixed, but it's just not moving quickly enough.
Thank you, Alex. Scott?
Admittedly, I don't have great knowledge on the situation, but as a board member presented with the issue, I want to gather the information, see what is possible, bring all the stakeholders together, who's in charge of what, see what, nobody wants to, at the end, nobody wants to actually pay for something. They want to somehow pass the buck. So it's a matter of defining who's responsible for what, bringing this together, getting the plan together. The residents of the condos, they're homeowners, and, we're there to support them as a board. So it's a matter of, doing whatever we can to support those homeowners, those resident owners down there. And, it's just a matter of trying to bring people together and, urge another entity to get moving, so be it. But it's a matter of gathering all the information to see what we can do to support those residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Michael?
Well, I think it's a big problem. I do. I ran into some pretty passionate people that live downtown at the Food Truck Friday and heard a lot of different things. I question whether or not certain things are true or not, but I took it upon myself to walk around downtown this weekend and take a close look at some of these buildings, especially, the ones in the older section on Front Street and also on Bloom Street. And there are some serious problems, some serious issues. And I get a sense that the people that live in that association feel like they have no recourse. They're not getting, I can't remember the name of the company that owns that association, but it's a company out of New York, I was told. Is that accurate? And it seems like this company could care less about these properties. And these people feel abandoned to a degree, and there's some serious issues down there. There's problems with termites. I think that's visible. This is our downtown section. I think what Fred said is true. CROA has to find out, and I think quickly, what we legally can do and get together with the other associations in town and make this more of a town problem, because it's everybody's downtown. We want to see it look great and be great, and it's something I think that's serious, and we're going to have to move on this, is my opinion.
Thank you, Michael. Tim?
Well, the question was basically, does CROA have any ability to get this thing moving down the road? And actually, I think Eric said this, really all of CROA's responsibilities are, at least at this point, is aesthetic responsibilities to the look of the outside of the building. Unfortunately, the issue really is that we've got a lot of players. We've got CNOA, who really is the responsible party for the governing body for pushing the improvements on these buildings and the maintenance on these buildings. And of course, obviously, CJC. But the biggest culprit of all of them is obviously Lexington. And Lexington has done a horrible job of maintaining these buildings. And I've known about the condition of these buildings for a long time. And we have been talking on a constant basis, year after year after year, to Lexington to ask them to step up and start maintaining these buildings. and they give us this cold shoulder. I mean, they're really, all they're really doing over there is taking the assessment money, and I have no clue what they're doing with it, but I suspect they're paying, or they're purchasing other properties with it or something, because they're obviously not using it to maintain the buildings. If you look at the buildings, it's been at least 8 or 10 years that even caulk or any kind of other weatherproofing has been applied to these to the buildings. And of course, you don't put weatherproofing or caulk on a building, you're going to get water inside the walls. And and really, Town Center Condominium Association is really their victim, I guess, is probably a good term, because they're also really don't have a lot to do. I would love to see what the attorneys say about what CROA can do legally to push this thing forward.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I would say my first experience really with just the conditions downtown. We're doing a holiday home tour. I volunteered with one of the homes that was right downtown, so I got to see firsthand the plywood that was up as a wall, and stairs that were missing, and walls that had holes in them. And right now, my heart just goes out to everyone living there. I can't even imagine how frustrating it has to be in that situation. When I was a child, we dealt with a black mold issue with our home up north, and I know firsthand the lasting health effects that can happen from being in situations like that. And there's so much more research going on now with how to treat homes and how to get rid of all of the mold issues. And with it being such a big issue, it just blows my mind that this is not something that has really been taken care of yet. I think I'm a dance teacher, so I have been poring over the charter trying to see if there's anything we can do. I'll be the first person to say this is not my area of expertise. I think if I am elected to the board, it would definitely be probably the biggest issue we'd be dealing with, but it's how do you get people together, and if nothing else, how do you just make it a more known issue amongst the community so we can lend our support as neighbors, if nothing else. I think that's kind of at least where I'm coming from. Let's expose the issue, let's get more people aware, more people involved, and at least just support the people who are fighting. Honestly, I feel like it's more of an attorney's issue. I because of all the legalities of it that are involved, I do not know what we can do, but if nothing else, I want my neighbors to know that I at least have their back.
Thank you, Lindsay. Eric?
Thank you, Lindsay, for using the very last thing that I had written out of my notes that someone else had not already mentioned.
You always run over time anyway, Leonard. This is a good opportunity. Yep.
So let's go to first the CROA legal issue. Does CROA have a responsibility there legally or not? We need to explore that. Do we have a moral or empathetic responsibility to our neighbors? We definitely do. I think the whole thing is going to wind up being the Town Center Condo Association versus Lexington in a drawn-out legal battle, but we've had a few of those in town, and neighbors have, many of our neighbors in other condos have won those battles and have done well out of that, or at least not as bad as what the dark cloud over the Town Center condos looks today. As far as what we can help as a board, again, I think that's very limited. I think we basically need to offer the 105 residents down there our sympathy, our empathy, and see what we can do. I've walked down there every 5 nights a week minimum around the lakes. I've seen each of those buildings as they've torn into them, and it's not a pretty sight. I hope everything goes best for the association, the condo association downtown. And outside of moral support, I'm not sure exactly what the CROA board in and of itself can do without getting some legal opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. We'll stay with Team Red over there. And we'll keep on going. We'll go back this way. And Leonard, with you, a couple of questions that we've gotten are some questions, as you guys have described, that, is in the purview in CROA or not. And then one of the questions is really the camera system is one. If you've read about the camera system, been online talking about a camera system. So what are your thoughts on the camera system? And then also speeding and stopping, not stopping, following laws, but may not be something that CROA directly is involved with. Is there something that we can do anything about those two issues, and how do you feel about
So
those?
you're talking about traffic enforcement as the second issue then?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's start with the camera system. It is my understanding that the CDD, the Celebration Community Development District, had some meetings with the sheriff's office. And in those meetings, trying to encourage the sheriff's office to let us put not let us put cameras up. We have the right to put them up. But I'm talking about the CDD, Celebration CCDD, Celebration Community Development District. As part of trying to put those cameras up, they contacted the sheriff. The sheriff said that they use one system in certain areas, and the CDD said, well, we could use that system. The sheriff then said and told the CDD, this is from a member of the CDD board. I don't like to shout someone out right in public that doesn't have a chance to defend themselves. But they said, basically, that the sheriff's office said, probably the only time we would ever use that would be if there was a major crime, a murder or something, that we just needed to go and assign enough officers to look through film over a period of time, that they would not use that for smaller crimes, that they have no license plate readers or things like that through the sheriff's office that would work, that would be compatible with anything that they have. In other words, the sheriff's office does not have enough technology to make it a valuable thing for us unless we self-police, and we would look at those things and then give those things to the sheriff's office.
It's probably my fault I combined two questions. So why don't let you finish about the speeding and the enforcement. Any comments about that?
Speeding and enforcement safety as a general purview does not fall under the CROA board. The Community Development District is tasked with safety as part of in the state law that creates community development districts, and Osceola County. And we do have a deputy that works here 40 hours a week, Jerry Weiland, who, if you report things to him, he tends to get on it. He tends to look into it. He'll refer things to traffic. He'll refer things to wherever it needs to be done. If you seem to have a lot of traffic problems in your area, call the county sheriff's office. The more calls they get about it, the more deputies they're going to send out, and they'll send their traffic units out and try to correct this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay, same questions.
I think it would be interesting to try to see legally what rights, not necessarily legally what rights we have to post cameras. I mean, that's something that the development can choose to do. I think it's more of a manpower issue of manning the videos and really looking through to see what we consider to be a big deal is not necessarily going to be considered a high crime in other areas. My brother's actually a DC police officer, so he laughs at some of the things that happen down here as small town community. Obviously, it's important to us, but when you look at the bigger picture of just Central Florida alone, our crime rates are pretty reasonable. Actually, they're very much on the lower end. I'm passionate about traffic, obviously, because when you're walking around with your daughter and you see people run a stop sign when you're in the crosswalk, it can be pretty frightening. I am a huge fan of Sheriff Jerry. I feel like he goes above and beyond to serve the community and make people feel safe in their homes and out on the streets. I think there's only so much you can do, especially with as many tourists in town as there are. I'm curious to see when we expand to a certain point if there's more room in the budget to have more people come into town to police the area. I don't know if that's something that would fall under our purview, but that's definitely something I would be interested in looking into. As far as the video, I think it would just really depend on the people on the receiving end. I mean, we can put as many things into place as we want, but if they're not manning the video footage and it's not something that is really a high priority, then it really wouldn't be worth the money or the time.
Thank you very much. Tim?
Well, I actually had an opportunity to speak with a couple of sheriff's police this weekend over this camera issue, this exact issue. And the idea here was, or at least the discussion was that we put these cameras on the exits and entrance ways of the town. And the cameras would be taking pictures of the folks' license plates as they come in and out. He said that the sheriff's department has a program where if there's a license plate that pops up or that is taken, that is, for example, belongs to a car that they're looking for, a felon or whatever the case, that would actually alert them that this car is now in celebration and that they needed to pursue it, okay? So, but it's, you know, everybody says, well, the cameras and the entrance and the exits ways are sort of like Big Brother. Well, yeah, but we also got to make sure that we keep our residents' safety and first thing in mind as well. And that comes to the traffic issues. There's a lot of people who just California roll through stop signs. The 25-mile speed limit is an absolute joke. Nobody does that. It's really a mess. And the only solution to that is that we all get active on posting people's license plates that just drove through a stop sign or just sped down Celebration Avenue at 40 miles an hour, or call the sheriff's non-emergency phone line and inundate them with calls with regard to traffic violators, and maybe we'll get more than one sheriff to stay here 40 hours a week and take care of our town.
Thank you very much. Michael?
I'm not sure about the cameras. I think it's worth exploring, worth further discussion. I'd be interested in what the cost would be and who's going to pay for it. As far as the speed limit in town and the stop signs, it's a joke. I mean, people roll through stop signs. It's incredible to me. I'd be more interested in seeing if we could come up with some sort of a red light type system where we can, if they roll through a stop sign, their picture's taken and they're ticketed, because that probably would be the only sure way of solving this problem. And I think it is a problem, especially in the town center and close to the grade school.
Thank you. Scott?
Really don't have much background on the cameras, but I would say the first thing is look at the return on investment of the camera. Who's paying for it? What are you really going to get out of that? And as Leonard pointed out, if it's not constantly monitored, it's only going to be used for or gone back to if something major occurs and you go back to the tape. So, a big investment in cameras around town to catch something major, which probably could catch already. Is it really worth it? But that is not something, you need the full details to really determine if that's something to go forward with. In terms of the traffic in town, I sit in my office, my house faces the stop sign. I see people rolling through that stop sign constantly. I go to the school every afternoon and stand on the corner of Greenbrier and campus, and even with the crossing guard out there, people are running the stop sign with kids out, crossing guards out. I've almost been hit by cars at that intersection. And when the crossing guard goes up and yells at somebody, they play stupid like they didn't see the sign or they didn't know they had to stop because they're not speaking English. Whatever the case may be, people are going to do it. And I don't know what the solution is. More officers in town patrolling, more traffic stops, more of a presence. I don't know what the solution is, but I know that people value a safe community. People want to live in a safe community, and that involves traffic safety, involves public, safety of your home. So anything that the board can do to potentially make the community safer is worth looking into and analyzing the pros and cons of different safety measures.
Thank you very much, Scott. Eric? Well, I'll first start by saying that I think that the camera system in itself is not a CROA board issue, which is one of the reasons why I pursued the camera system, not as a board member. It was something that I actually started even before I became a board member of CROA. It was something that the Community Development District, as Leonard previously researched. The information kind of trailed off on it, and it came down to that issue of monitoring. The sheriff did not want the responsibility of real-time alerting with the system. Really and truly, the way that the system works is
It's automatic license plate recognition that flags things based off of a database. Comes through everything from an expired tag all the way to someone that might be a felon or a silver alert that's coming out. Those are the real-time alerting that can happen. I never pushed for that. I never wanted the real-time alerting. I knew the sheriff probably wouldn't pay attention to it. They don't have that level of manpower because, remember, there's a difference between a sheriff and a police department. A lot of us come from up north, myself included, where there's a police force, where there's community policing, a little bit more proactive. A sheriff is a peacekeeper, is really at the end of the day what it is. We have a very proactive peacekeeping force here in Osceola County, which we're fortunate for. But once again, it's a manpower issue. The forensic data, in my opinion, that could be used from a camera system of this nature in our community is valuable. We are kind of isolated as a higher income, higher value target for a lot of people. Is it minor non-violent crime? Yes. Most of the things are burglary. They're not robbery. They're breaking it in when no one's at home and they're stealing something from the residents. Still important to me, but yes, in comparison to the neighboring areas, we don't have any violent crime, which is great. I think that there's the frustrating part for me is I really wish there was a decision made whether or not we're going to move forward with something. I originally had a petition for this online that I created a pretty strong case to the Community Development District, in my opinion, with some research with the vendor that the sheriff currently uses for automatic license plate recognition that they have mounted on their vehicles that they use today. And we kind of came back with, well, they wanted a further blueprint with the sheriff's office. I tried to help facilitate that blueprint. Didn't go anywhere. So I bowed out. It was a large time commitment for me. For folks that do want to know in respect to how much something like this would cost, the initial capital expenditure was $117,625 with a recurring expenditure of $19,892. The reason the recurring expenditure was so high is because the data would not be housed by anyone here. It would be housed by someone off-site because we didn't want to have any access to it and be able to only provide access to the sheriff. When it comes to traffic enforcement, we have the Celebration Community Development District that did pay for supplemental deputy, which I thank them for, which is Deputy Weiland, who works on some of that more community policing model with some of the traffic enforcement. But once again, it's one of those things that we can encourage someone for, and it's not necessarily directly under the purview of the CROA board.
Thank you, Eric. Fred.
Thanks. Without knowing really what's already happened as far as the camera system, my first thing with the statistics, what are you looking for? Is it traffic crimes? Is it a lot of people coming in to sell drugs? Why do you need cameras? And then the second thing would be a cost-benefit analysis to say, okay, if you had this system, it would cost X amount of dollars, and if it costs X amount of dollars, realistically, we may be able to solve this crime or this amount of crimes or that amount of crimes. And sort of without looking at it from there, I'm not sure it would make any sense. It sounds from what Eric said and some others have said, particularly with the police not doing the monitoring, basically we'd be paying the $120,000 a year plus $20,000 a year for maintenance and off-thing storage. So if they had a deputy with nothing to do, he could look at the screen and maybe pick up someone that's got a warrant out. Otherwise, it just doesn't. Again, I don't know a whole lot about the subject, but I'd say at this point it doesn't make a lot of sense. Second, as far as traffic, CROA again is not responsible for traffic tickets or violations, but they certainly have an influence in the community. They can certainly encourage people to call if they see someone going through a stop sign. They can certainly put a little bit of pressure on the local police sheriff's office to try to get a little bit more help here. Other than that, I'm not sure what else I could think of at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple things I might disagree with a few people. Number one, I think one of the things that makes Celebration such a great place to live, and certainly one of the things that keeps our property values high, is that we want to feel safe and secure in our own homes. And that certainly is something CROA should be paying attention to. I spent most of my life in crime prevention and security. And actually the cameras and the monitored cameras would probably do not be of much value in detecting crime unless it was a serious crime and committed by somebody that could be identified. But I'll say this about criminals in general, and certainly about the property criminals that would be probably our most serious problem here, is that they're not too bright, but they're bright enough to know to go to places that don't cause them a lot of trouble. And just having a camera and a sign saying there's a camera at each of the entrances to Celebration would have an impact on criminal interest in Celebration. So I don't know if the cost would be worth it, but it would certainly have an impact on property crime, especially opportunistic crime. People, and certainly Celebration is a high dollar, and like the Willie Horton guy said, you go where the money is, and property criminals come to where the money is, and we're here. But we also have a pretty good system already where we don't have many accesses to the community, and we could probably deter a great deal of crime by making sure that people know we do look for them now. I guess I would disagree on the other thing. I think probably most of the people that I know in Celebration, that I see in Celebration, and I probably run the streets every day almost, is most people do follow the law. Most people do follow. Most people stop at stop signs, and I think people pay a lot of attention, especially when kids are going to school in the morning and walking home in the evening. A few don't, and like you said, we have a sheriff. Everybody should program the sheriff's office non-emergency number in their phone. If you see somebody who's endangering our children's lives or our lives, we should report them when it happens. But I also say this, that having a community and having people to know their neighbors and to pay attention to their neighbors probably has more to do with the prevention of crime than anything else. And that's what we need. And that's what I would recommend. I think a neighborhood watch on the streets would do more than anything else to keep criminals from coming.
Alex? Well, going last is always hard because everybody's already said a lot of the stuff that needed to be said. Spending that much money on a camera system that just takes tags, I think is a lot of money to spend. I think it might be better to use that money for increased, to pay for more deputy coverage. My approach is always to be proactive, and the more deputy coverage you would have, it would be a deterrent. For people for burglars and so forth, they want to make it the easiest way to gain their loot. So for us to be proactive and make it hard for them and to be a deterrent to come to Celebration, I think should be the focus to it. It's always hard to catch somebody after they have burglarized something because they're out of the town. So looking at spending all this money for more deputy coverage, maybe even increasing the community patrol. Does he still have that? I haven't seen that car in a while. It's still here? Haven't seen it. So again, my focus will be on being proactive and, of course, giving people tickets when they do speed and cross the stop signs.
Thank you, Alex. Well, we'll give you a chance. You can take the first one then, instead of having to wait for the last one. I'm going to read this question. Hopefully you guys bear with me. This is from a resident. And I'm going to read it exactly as it is. Last year, a number of CROA board members expressed the opinion that owners needed to be consulted before there would be any change to a community park adjacent or near their homes. For example, the resurfacing of a playground. At the same time, the Recreation Task Force, a committee appointed by the CROA board, voiced the opinion that the community parks are communal property and local neighbors have no voice at all in how the parks are used. For example, community parks being used as athletic fields for teams or league play. How do you view the importance of the opinion of those whose homes surround parks in a board decision about the neighborhood green areas? I think the big thing to take away around this is, let me repeat, how do you view the importance of the opinion of those in the surrounding homes and parks adjacent to these areas? The other parts, sounds like, is a homeowner wrote this, so it's their take on it, but I think you kind of get the gist of it.
So far, what I've seen in the community and what CROA has done, I think they always want to have the input from the community. If we look at the dog park, we had a lot of people speak up for and against a specific location. Well, again, CROA listened. There were workshops. I think we've had a task force, just like with school. There's a task force. I think CROA listens, listens to the community, and if you are in a place where you don't want something happen to your park, you need to speak up. Without you speaking up and telling CROA what you want, CROA does not know your wishes. So just coming after the fact and say, I didn't like that, well, that doesn't really work. You need to be involved. Everyone that has a stake in the community needs to voice their opinion. So come to the CROA meetings. They're always open. I think they're very transparent, and you can express your views. And I'm pretty sure that everybody on the CROA board will listen, especially if there's a task force that looks at a problem. So let your voice be heard.
Thank you. Dennis, same question.
Well, I think that, our parks are for us. I think that the community areas are for this community. We pay for it and we pay for the operation. So I do think that we, as members of CROA, board members or not, we as members of CROA need to have an input into whatever happens in the park and how we manage those parks. But I think we should all have that input. And if, after we get it, the board makes the decisions, and that is a community decision. So the short answer is yes, I think that there should be, the people that live there, should have, near the park should have input. And it would be good, and I don't want to recommend to the board whether I'm elected or not, that instead of the comments at the first of each meeting, we try to put a section in each issue that's going to require any discussion or people have an interest in it, and make a motion right then to let people have their input, so they can get their input right when the issues comes up. I think that it would have more involvement from the community at that point. I think if people have an interest in things like for instance, the flowers around the fountain in the Heritage Park, they could talk about it when it happens.
Thank you. Fred?
Thanks. Not sure I understand the question completely.
Well, let me.
But in a general sense, let me
Sure.
answer that the community property is the community property, not the closest person to it. It's always seemed to me, and I could be wrong, that it seems everything that's done in Celebration, anywhere, anytime, is in the newspaper, it's on the website, it's somewhere. And certainly, if I live, which I do actually, live next to Spring Park, or half a block away, and I thought that would affect me, I'd be here. I'd come to the meeting, I'd voice my opinion. And unless I'm missing something, that certain things are done in secret, as far as these parks, it would seem to me that everyone in the community, whether they be next door or 5 blocks away, should and does have the opportunity to come and voice their opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Eric?
This question obviously comes up a lot, and it comes around recreation and athletic scheduling is where it centers. As a couple of other folks have mentioned in respect to the dog park, it does come down a lot of time to a not in my backyard issue, of a NIMBY issue, which we all have varying opinions on. Celebration is what I would refer to as more of a city block environment for a lot of our homes, where you can high-five your neighbor, and you don't have a large acreage surrounding you of green space. I live in Artisan Park in a small bungalow on Mosaic Drive. My backyard is about as big as this table, and we use the small little park in front of us where my 6-month-old likes to walk around, and we take his trike around there. It's a community area. I think on the flip side, you also have the folks that do want to have a little bit more of an organized league play, as our athletic teams are growing. If you can't tell by my appearance, I'm not a huge fan of athletic sports. I was involved in a young age, not really involved now. But I think that it's still important for the community to be able to have those types of spaces, which I think that we're going to be able to get with things like the Civic Corridor coming online, which is the area behind the library where we've also placed conveniently the dog park as well, that's proposed to go back there. For a little bit more of that organized sports or organized play. Obviously, to echo Fred's comments, it is a community area surrounding those parks and areas. So we can take the input and listen to those residents because they're obviously important. But once again, as the board, you are for the greater good of the community. That you need to keep that in mind at the same point in time. So it's a hard decision.
Scott?
Well, in terms of the parks, I know it's great living right around the corner from the parks in North Village. I know when we were looking at homes, it was, oh, great, we can walk to the park with our daughter. You know, she gets low, she can just go take her scooter down and meet her friends. That was nice knowing it was right there. But I also understood, you know, that it's everybody's park. We all, you know, after school sometimes we used to go over to Spring Park over there and play in that area with some friends. So it's great that we can all share the park space, but I mean, it is, you know, people, and I mean, I'd be sad if certain things change that my daughter didn't like at the park. You know, that's what we do as parents. You know, our kids are our first, and that's where we get the feedback on the parks, really. It's a matter of what's the best situation for the community as a whole, because we're all in this is one big community, not just individual neighborhoods, individual streets. I understand. I do, you know, recommendations from individuals that might have purchased a home directly on that street with the park, directly across. They moved because the park was right there, or a field. You know, their opinions we consider, obviously, and you know, their property values could potentially be affected by, you know, major changes or little changes for that area. Something that needs to be considered in any decision-making process. In terms of the fields and teams and everything, it's a matter of scheduling. I think the one concern is making sure the fields do not get torn apart, and I think with proper scheduling, that's probably doable to help not have just a field of mud. Thanks.
Thank you. Michael?
If I understood that question correctly, the person's talking about changing the structure of a park to something other than what it is now?
They specifically talked about two things. First, athletic fields being used for organized play, and then I think also resurfacing of a playground, probably, possibly in an area that you might live right across,
Okay.
might change the usage or something like that, too.
Well, I think anytime you change, I mean, the parks in this community are so great, but anytime you change a park, I think every effort should be made above and beyond to notify the residents within that area especially that there are some changes being proposed to the park. This is when a meeting is going to be held to discuss those changes. We encourage everyone in this neighborhood to attend. We want your feedback, that it should be solicited, again, above and beyond, instead of just putting, you know, a little notice in a paper. It's got to be more than that. Maybe a flyer on their front porch or under their door to say this is going to happen, because it does mean a lot to walk out to your playground that has a jungle gym in it, to find that it's been turned into a soccer field. That's a big blow if you have little kids especially. So I think it's very, very important.
Thank you, Michael. Tim?
My first house was across the street from the East Village fields. And most every day, there would be cars lined up on both sides of the street, to the point that we couldn't even hardly get down the street. And then at the end of the block, there was a curve, and they would come around that curve very fast. And so we ran into a lot of trouble with traffic there. But I got to pay extra for that when I bought that house, because it was across the street from a field instead of across the street from a house. So I've always said that the fields belong to the community. And if I just happen to have purchased a house across from a field and I don't like what they're doing there, then I probably either need to move or stop driving down that street during lacrosse games. What a community field is used for, it should absolutely be up to the CROA, to the residents of Celebration. And again, if there's something that's going to be changing there, if you're putting a soccer field into a baseball field, then that's a big enough change, in my opinion, that you let the residents around that field know that before it happens, so that they can provide feedback.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I feel like pretty much all sides of this topic have been covered, but I think the most important part about that question is the organized sports aspect. I think obviously the entire community as a whole needs to be thought of in processes like this. Once the corridor gets opened, I think that will relieve a lot of the issues. Obviously, we have a ton of kids that are all getting older and participating in more and more sports. I'm happy to hear that. I like the fact that our programs and our community programs are doing really well. I think the main thing that we really need to focus on is making sure if organized sports are using specific fields, whether it's the fields over in North Village, it's not necessarily set up as a soccer field. So we need to make sure that they're being rented properly through Town Hall and the Parks and Rec Department so that they can be paying the rental fees that can then go towards resodding or taking care of that area to make sure that it is maintained properly and it doesn't become a mud pit. I think if things affect a specific neighborhood, yes, we do need to value their input, and it comes back to things we were talking about last week of how do we communicate effectively, how do we solicit feedback, how do we get people more and more involved. The more people reach out, the better decisions we can make because we know people's true opinions instead of just a select few. Obviously, if it's something you're passionate about, it's something you're going to be very vocal about. If it's something you don't really care about, you're less likely. If you're angry, you take to social media. So it really just kind of depends on getting everybody to start putting in their input. And I think really it comes down to scheduling and making sure that if it is an organized sport, it's scheduled properly through the processes that need to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Recreation Task Force that CROA has went through and divided all of the parks in Celebration. Steve was part of having that done, and it takes each park that we have and has divided it up into different headings, and they kind of relate to what might be done in that park. If you move into one of the largest classes, I can't recall the 4 different classes they had. The only class I can remember is Mew because it sounded like a cat. But there's 3 other classes of park, and if you move into the largest class of park, which would be like the one behind Heritage Hall, then there are going to be athletics or things done there, whether they're organized or not. You're not going to have any control about how many kids get out there playing if there's no organization. If there's organization, then there's going to be a certain number of kids out there on that field at any one time. As far as the CROA assets in general, I think that when you change a park, that is going to significantly change the park. Now, CROA has always weighed in, if they're going to take a playground that's aged out and they're going to replace it, they've always went in the past that I know of, and talked to the neighbors right around in that area to see what kind of items they may want that would be appropriate still for that area and what the residents there would want. You wouldn't want to live next to a park if you have a quiet sitting park right now that is classified as that, and have them put up a large neighborhood playground where you get 150 kids there. That wouldn't be fair without talking to the neighbors, and I'm out of time again as usual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're coming down to running out of time here, but we're going to jump to Tim, and we're going to treat this kind of in a fast round and give you about 30, 45 seconds or whatever you can, is just really kind of go down and tell us what your hot button is. What do you want to accomplish while you're on the CROA board? When your time is off in 2 years, I've done X. What would that be?
Well, I think I mentioned this in the last forum. There's a lot of, we're a 20-year community. So we're going to be experiencing a lot of degradation of the landscaping. Viburnums and podocarpuses don't live 20 years. They need to be replaced. So we're going to have a series of years here now where we begin to start replacing landscaping that just has gone past its life cycle. The other thing I'd like to see in my tenure is that we put together, one of the discussions that we had was the covenants and new people coming to the community and not knowing what they can and cannot do with regard to their properties. And I think it's a big problem because we need to be more proactive on how we communicate with residents that are new, and offering them a welcome packet that includes things like the do's and don'ts of what you can and cannot place in your yard or do in your yard or do to your buildings or whatever the case, along with the application, for example, for the resident ID and those kinds of things that will make that transition smoother, much more friendly, and welcome that individual to the community. I remember when I came to this community, they had a welcome party, which I thought was wonderful, and we may even want to consider resurrecting that.
Okay, Michael, what do you want to champion?
Well, I think the downtown issues that we talked about earlier are an immediate issue that's going to have to be addressed by the CROA board. We may look at it to a degree as their problem, their association's problem, and there might not be much that we can do about it. But in the end, it's our downtown just as much as it is theirs, and we want it to look good. I'm also for just, enhancing Celebration's brand. And, I think the first thing that we need to do that is to get a little more technologically advanced. I think with the unveiling of the new website, I mentioned this last week, I think that's an important step forward. I'd like to see that. I'm anxious for that to happen.
Great, thank you so much. Scott?
I'd like to do what I could to help bring the value of homes up in terms of maintaining celebration standards and also keeping it relevant, making it a sought-after community that people want to move to, not, oh, that community that's, something new down the road's coming up, I'll just go there instead of looking at an established community like Celebration, something that, where people are fighting over, the market, to buy a home instead of, oh, there's a lot of inventory. Let's do what we can to increase the value and exposure of the community. And part of that is, what we've talked about before with downtown. Everybody that comes in to visit, where do they go? Unless they get lost and make a wrong turn, they're going downtown. They're parking, they're walking around. That's the impression they get of the community. So anything is a homeowners association that we can do to, make a lasting impression to those visitors, because they're the ones that are going out back to wherever they're coming from and spreading the word of Celebration for us. It's like free marketing. What can we do to get them to spread the word and add value that way? Thank you.
Great, thanks. Eric?
Scott hit the nail on the head of what the purpose of a homeowners association is. At the end of the day, our job is to preserve, protect, and increase homeowner value. That's what we're here to do. One of the reasons why I'm rerunning for the board, I'm the only candidate actually that's rerunning for election for another term, is I want to make sure that we see the existing strategic plan that we've developed and master recreation plan through. There's a lot of things that I think that our board has set in motion for many different reasons. Some of them hasn't progressed as quickly as I would have liked them to see. And so there's still some final things that I want to complete. As other folks have mentioned, we need to make sure that the community stays relevant so that there are people that are fighting over coming in here. Because once again, that relates back to our homeowner value that we cut back on. Increasing technology is obviously a hot button issue of mine that everyone knows. And I just really think that we still have a couple more things that we definitely need to finish as part of this strategic plan.
Thank you so much. Fred?
Thanks. I don't have a hot button issue, but I sort of agree with every candidate that so far has spoken. Maintaining Celebration, maintaining the values, maintaining the culture and the sense of safety, and it's probably the most important thing anyone on the board can do. And I congratulate the past boards because they've done, in my judgment, a fabulous job of running the association. And again, anything the association can do to increase or improve the community and have the values of all of our properties, go up rather than down, and make Celebration a destination for anyone that comes to this area and visits regularly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dennis?
Maybe I do have a hot button on it. Celebration is a great place to live. It's environmentally beautiful, it's socially beautiful, and it has a sense of community that makes it a great place to live for all of us. We're probably into some major changes, significant changes at least, in the community. We're seeing the community get a great deal larger and a great deal more complex. And we're also seeing some just general deterioration of our buildings and our green spaces, not because we're not taking care of them, because they're getting older. And those are going to be some issues that are going to have to be dealt with. My goal, my hope that if I'm elected to the board, and I hope I am, that 2 years from now, Celebration is just as great a place to live as it is now.
Thank you. Alex?
I already mentioned it last time. I think one of my hot buttons, so to speak, is put a new owner orientation back into place so everybody that buys a home does read the covenants and not just signs on the dotted line. The more they know, the easier it will be for the management company, also for CROA, to uphold the standards, and less work for ARC as well, or ARC, I call it ARC. Every year, the CROA board sets out for a strategic plan. They do strategic planning, and that is the focus for that year for the CROA board. And I think that's why it's very important to have a diverse scope of people on the CROA board, because that's where all the ideas come from. So that strategic plan is the focus for the CROA board, and that's what everybody should adhere to. I think it's very important to maintain and improve the physical plant and the infrastructure of Celebration so we can grow with the future, because as Eric and everybody else said, we are going to be growing tremendously in the next few years if everything comes to a fruition as it is planned. And again, as I always say, we need to listen. We need to listen to the management company, because everybody complains to them, and maybe not always to CROA, and then listen to the owners to see what they want.
Thank you very much. Leonard?
I think we need improved communications from Town Hall, which is, again, it goes back to what I've heard mentioned already from several other candidates, that new people coming in need to be informed about what we have, what's available, and what the rules are. I would like to see additional technological innovations come on. Again, I sang Eric's praises last time. I will sing it one more time. He has advanced many of the technological advances that we've made in the last 2 years with CROA, the CELOSERV app, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to have data obtained for the usage of all of our pools and parks, so that we can really indeed look and see what the level of usage of each of the assets are. What are we spending and what are we getting? And I would also like to see transparency in the budget. I have a degree in accounting. The budget between the CROA and the CJC is 10 pages long, but it doesn't really match any revenues of our expenses very well. And I think a budget that would be rewritten, that would show what each person is getting for their $911.40 that they leave with CROA. The rest of what you pay to CROA is actually the trash pickup fee. But I think people should know what they're getting for that $911.40 each year. I think that technology should be used much more and should be implemented in a much faster fashion. When we first moved into Celebration, we were the most wired town in North America, according to the trivia game in 1999. And one of the things we used to talk about was Mayberry meets the Jetsons, and that's what we were.
I really like everything that everyone has to say. I think it's a passionate group of people, and I think that everyone has nice focal points that they're passionate about. I think my main thing is really the youth programs. I'm part of a young family. I care a lot about kids, and I think that, I moved here because this is where I want to raise my kids, and I think a lot of other people did the same. I think that with the way our youth is growing, there's so much that we can do to really capitalize on keeping this community a safe and fun place for them, and the more that we can focus on that, the better. My parents' motto when I was growing up was keep them busy, keep them off the streets, and keep them safe, and I like to think I turned out all right, so I'd like to keep that same motto for my kids moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay. We'll stay with you, and we'll do closing statements and make your way around. So now from last to first, this is your opportunity and everybody else the opportunity. Do that. Before you do start, though, I want to thank everybody for being here and thank everybody who's watching from home. We're not live streaming, but I did get a notice from the Teleservice app that it will be online. So those of you, you still have a couple days to vote. Actually, you probably have another until March 7th at 5:30. Again, come to 851 building if you have any trouble voting at all, or if you have not received it in the mail, please let them know here at the 851 building. Sorry, my voice this weekend, been a lot of activities. So I'd like to thank all the candidates. This is, in many years of being in town and seeing this, is one of the years where you can't have a wrong choice for any candidate, and it's really nice to see. Lindsay?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for their time and for really investing their questions and coming out to meet all of us. I think it's been a really interesting experience. It's opened my eyes to what a wonderful community this really is. As far as I'm concerned, I've tried to be very transparent about what I'm passionate about and who I am and where my strengths and weaknesses are. I do not have the expertise when it comes to budgeting that a bunch of my fellow candidates do. I am passionate about keeping this community safe, keeping this community fun, keeping the property values high, keeping it beautiful. And really, my main focus, like I said earlier, is on the kids. I love the youth programs. I love everything we have to offer here, and that's why I chose to move here and raise my family. So please, if you don't vote for me, get out and vote. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to Tim. We'll leave you for last, Leonard. Separate the red team.
First of all, I'd like to thank Town Hall and the CROA board for putting on these kinds of forums. I think they're very informative, and I think they provide a place where you can begin to learn a little bit more about the candidate. To say this, my financial and property management skills that I bring to the table for the community, I think will be a significant asset to help this community move forward in a more positive way. And if I'm elected, I will use those talents to help improve on how we insure ourselves, how we manage our assets, as well as the facilities and the management of the the actual common areas of the property. So, thank you.
Michael?
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been great to be involved in this process. It's been a learning experience, and it's helped me get to know my community that I really, really love just that much more. And I'm really hoping that I get the opportunity to serve on the CROA board. I think it's a little bit more than the typical homeowners association. I think the CROA board kind of sets the tone for our community. It's a great vehicle for bringing people together to solve problems. And the community involvement that I've had a chance to see firsthand, be it the school board issue or something else, or the new school issue or something else, it's been impressive to see the amount of interaction that the community has with these issues and helping to solve these issues. I'm for the CROA board, trying to lead the way in getting things done downtown. We may not have much of a legal obligation down there, but I think we do have a civic obligation to those people that are facing some pretty serious problems. I'm for keeping our schools as great as they are, and again, the Osceola School Board, they can listen to us too a little bit. They're elected officials as well. But I love it here, and I would love the opportunity to serve. If you vote for me, that would be great, but please get out there and vote.
Excellent. Thank you. Scott?
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and last week. Thanks for everybody watching at home later. Please, if I didn't earn your vote, please vote for somebody. Don't just let your vote go wasted. There's everybody's got great opinions up here, great value to the board. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm out and about by the school in the afternoons. My contact information is online and in the paper. I hope to, if elected, bring set the course for the next 20 years of celebration. 20 years is gone, and now we need to look towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Thanks all around, and I'll do what I did again. I wanted to thank both my wife and my 6-month-old son for, there's a significant amount of time commitment that I think everyone that's sitting up here realizes. And without the support of my family, I wouldn't be able to be up here. So they're actually waiting for me for dinner right now. But to echo Scott's comments, all of our contact information is online. You can reach out to me either via the email address that's listed in those places, or eric@ericforcroa.com, or org, rather. I think, as everyone has said, it's important for your voice to be heard. Get out and vote. If you have a question, ask it. We're all pretty nice people up here. I haven't met anyone that's been a jerk. So if you have something, don't just let it go away. If you have a concern about an issue, ask the question. You might not like the answer that you're going to get. A lot of people don't like the answers that I give sometimes, but I try to be upfront about it. So once again, if you don't like my answer, find someone else's up here that you do like. And please, 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 let's try to make this one of our best years for voter turnout. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank CROA and the Town Hall for holding these events, and thank all of you for attending and giving us a chance to talk to you. I've served on a number of boards over the last couple of years. All turned out to be pretty decent. And I believe that given the opportunity, I could be a great asset to the board. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody who came out to listen to us tonight. Thanks to everybody who's watching us on the live feed right now. And those of you who will watch it on the later replays of the same thing. Thanks a lot to those of you who have already voted. Thanks to those of you who are still going to vote, because that indicates an interest in the community, and that interest is what makes this such a great place to live. Celebration. Celebration in my hometown. I will do everything I can to keep it the kind of place that we all want to live in. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out tonight, and as I said before, I think we have a very diverse group of people up here, and that is good, because diversity brings creativity, and that's what the CROA board needs. I think I bring a long history of being in celebration since 2005 to the table. I have a community knowledge, as I've been on CROA before, and I bring my community management skills to the table. I will focus on being proactive. I want to improve their service levels and maintain and improve our physical infrastructure. I want to get feedback from everybody, because, again, it's your town, and we are here to set the vision, but we need your feedback. So attend the meetings and let your voice be heard. And we need to listen to management more to challenge them on becoming a better management company, and also to take our challenges, embrace our challenges, and build for the future.
Thank you very much. And we're going to go all the way over here.
Would be me.
Yeah, that would be you. That's all right.
I'd like to thank you, Lee, for hosting these events. I'd like to thank everyone that has come to the events, and those that will actually spend time and listen to these forums on the internet. The members of the board, as representing the community, don't always have a purview for a community problem, but we can speak for the individual residents to the other boards. If you bring us a problem, quite often we go to, or I'm sorry, not we, I'm not on the board yet. The board will go to other entities and speak for them. And it gives you a little bit larger voice having the association speak for you instead of yourself. If elected, I would be proud to serve. It would be my pleasure to serve all of the residents of Celebration. If any of you have any further questions of me or any positions that I hold, I would be happy to wait 10 minutes or so after this and answer anyone in the audience's questions. And I always talk off of notes, I'm sorry. That's it. May everyone be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think echo a couple things that you guys said. First of all, get out and vote. Make sure you vote. Please don't waste your vote, again, either online or in the mail. Also, I'd like to thank Town Hall for setting this up. They spend a lot of time here. Our executive director is here. JR is here behind the camera, our communication director. So we have a lot of work that goes involved doing this. So, and I'd very much like to thank all the candidates. And if I can get a round of applause for the candidates that's put their time in this. I know it's not easy to be up here and do this, and we appreciate you doing this a second time. And I think that one of the things that was said is the emails are in the Celebration News. It's online. We have a lot of questions that we did not get to. Some of them were very specific, incorporation and management and how you feel. So what I would suggest, if you have a couple questions directly for these candidates, is to email them directly, and hopefully they'll answer that. And if you want to post it on the front porch for everybody to see, that would be great, because we do have a lot that we haven't gotten to. So I apologize for those of you who sent these in and everything else. We will conclude this, but if you want to stay around, if there's any questions, this is an opportunity for you to ask these questions, because we do have some people in the audience that would love to ask questions. On behalf of the Celebration Residential Owners Association, I'd like to thank you for coming, and have a great evening.